I am a 32-year-old software engineer living in Seattle, and 3 days ago I was supposed to be the happiest man alive. After 4 years with Diane, we had finally planned our dream wedding. The venue was booked, 300 guests had RSVP'd, and everything seemed perfect. But then I overheard a phone conversation that changed everything. What I discovered turned me from an excited groom into the man who vanished from his own wedding. Before I tell you what happened, I would love to know where you are watching this from. Please drop a comment below and let me know your city or country. And if you want to hear more stories like this, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Trust me, what I am about to share will make you question everything you thought you knew about trust and family. Let me take you back to the moment that saved me from the biggest mistake of my life. 4 years ago, I met Diane at the tech company where we both worked. She was the marketing manager and I was part of the engineering team. Diane was smart, elegant, and ambitious. We started as colleagues, became friends over coffee breaks, and eventually fell in love. Our relationship grew naturally, built on late-night conversations, weekend hikes in the Cascades, and a shared dream of building a life together. I proposed to her last summer on a beach in Oregon. The sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and pink as I got down on one knee. She said yes, with tears streaming down her face, and I felt like the luckiest man in the world. We spent months planning our wedding. We chose a beautiful venue by the lake, decided on white flowers everywhere, and hired a jazz band. I had saved for 3 years to make this day perfect. The total cost came to around $45,000, every penny from my own savings. But meeting Diane's family was when I first sensed something was off. Diane came from wealth. Her father, Gordon, was a prominent attorney in Bellevue, and her mother, Patricia, ran a successful real estate company. The first time I visited their estate, I felt their eyes measuring my worth. Their home was a mansion with marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and artwork that probably cost more than my annual salary. Patricia greeted me with a tight smile that never reached her eyes. Throughout dinner, she kept comparing me to someone she called the Johnson boy, apparently a young CEO who had gone to school with Diane. Gordon, on the other hand, interrogated me about my income, my investments, and my 5-year financial plan. Every question felt like a test I was failing. Diane would always defend me afterwards. She told me her parents just needed time to warm up to the idea of us. So I tried harder. I started attending their family dinners every Sunday. I helped Patricia troubleshoot her company's computer systems. I even gave Gordon investment advice on tech stocks. I fixed their network, updated their security software, and spent countless hours trying to prove I was good enough for their daughter. As the wedding approached, their involvement intensified in ways that made me uncomfortable. 3 months before the big day, Patricia insisted we change venues. The lakeside location I had booked was not prestigious enough, she said. She wanted us to move to a luxury hotel in downtown Seattle that cost twice as much. When I hesitated because of the expense, Gordon offered to pay the difference, but his tone made it clear this was not a gift but an investment he expected returns on. Then came the prenuptial agreement. Gordon presented it to me 6 weeks before the wedding. He called it a formality, something to protect the family assets. I felt insulted, but Diane begged me to sign it. She said it would make her parents feel secure, and that it was just a piece of paper that would never matter because we would never divorce. Wanting to keep the peace, I agreed. 3 weeks before the wedding, Patricia added another 100 guests to our list. All of them were business associates, people I had never met and who had no connection to our relationship. The catering costs skyrocketed. I had to take out a $15,000 loan from the bank to cover the additional expenses. As I signed the loan papers, a small voice in my head whispered that something was wrong. But I pushed it aside, telling myself this was just the price of marrying into a wealthy family. Diane seemed exhausted during this time. She was caught between her family's demands and my growing frustration. Dark circles appeared under her eyes. She stopped laughing at my jokes. Our conversations became shorter, focused only on wedding logistics rather than our future together. I missed the woman I had fallen in love with, but I assumed the stress would pass once we were married. 3 days before the wedding, everything fell apart. I had driven to Diane's family home to finalize some last-minute details. Diane had left to meet with the wedding planner downtown, leaving me alone in that massive house. I walked into the living room to retrieve my phone, which I had left on the coffee table. That is when I heard voices coming from Gordon's study. The door was slightly open, and I recognized Patricia's voice immediately. Something in her tone made me freeze. I should have walked away, but instead I found myself standing in the hallway, listening. Patricia was saying, "After they get married, we will execute the plan. Diane has already agreed to everything." My heart started pounding. "What plan?" Gordon responded. "Exactly. She will convince Brett to come work for our company at a reduced salary. We need someone with his technical skills, and once he is legally bound to this family, he will not have much choice." I felt my stomach drop. Patricia continued. "And once he is locked in legally, we will gradually take control of their finances. Diane will set up joint accounts, transfer his money into them, and then we will invest those funds into our projects. He has proven he can earn and save. That $45,000 he spent on this wedding shows he is financially responsible." Gordon laughed, a cold sound that made my skin crawl. "If he resists, we will use the prenup I modified. There is a clause on page 12 that he did not read carefully. If they divorce within 3 years, he owes Diane 50% of his current assets as compensation for emotional distress," Patricia added. "The boy is too trusting. He signed without getting his own lawyer to review it." Perfect. I stood there, unable to move, unable to breathe. The people who were about to become my in-laws were discussing me like I was a business acquisition, not a human being. And worse, they had said Diane agreed to this. Gordon's voice came again. "Diane was reluctant at first, but she understands that our plan is what is best for the family. She loves Brett, I will give her that, but love does not pay the bills. Money and strategic planning do." Patricia sighed. "I almost feel sorry for him. He genuinely believes this is a marriage based on love. But he will learn soon enough that in families like ours, every relationship serves a purpose." I backed away from the door as quietly as I could. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. I left that house in a daze, got into my car, and just drove. I did not have a destination. I just needed to get away from that place and those people. As I drove through Seattle's rainy streets, my mind raced with questions. Was Diane really part of this? Had our entire relationship been a setup, or was she being manipulated by her parents? I wanted to believe she was innocent, that she loved me genuinely, and was just caught in her family's schemes. But Patricia's words kept echoing in my head. Diane has already agreed to everything. I needed to know the truth before I made any decisions. That evening, when Diane came home to the apartment we shared, I tried to act normal, even though my heart was breaking. We ate dinner together, and I watched her carefully, looking for signs of deception. But she seemed like the same woman I had fallen in love with, tired and stressed, but still kind. After dinner, I decided to test the waters. "Diane, do you think your parents want me to work for their company?" She looked up from her plate, and I saw something flicker in her eyes. "Guilt, maybe. They have mentioned it, but you do not need to worry about that right now." I pressed further. "Have they said anything about our finances? About how we should handle money after we get married?" Now she looked uncomfortable. "Brett, why are you asking these strange questions? Is something wrong?" I took a deep breath. There was no point in dancing around it. "Do you know that your parents are planning to control my finances after we get married? That they want to use our marriage to essentially trap me into working for them and funnel my money into their business projects?" The color drained from Diane's face. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. The silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. Finally, she whispered, "You heard them, did not you?" That was all the confirmation I needed. My heart shattered into pieces right there at our dinner table. "So it is true. You knew about this." Tears started flowing down her cheeks. "Brett, I am so sorry. I did not want this. I never wanted to deceive you. But my parents, they have been pressuring me for months. They said if I did not go along with their plan, they would cut me off completely. I would lose my inheritance, my trust fund, everything. I stared at the woman I had planned to spend my life with, and I barely recognized her. So, you chose money over me. Over us. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. No, Brett, I love you. I really do. I thought that maybe after we got married, I could find a way to protect you from them. I thought I could have both you and my family, but I could see the truth in her eyes. She had made her choice long before I overheard that conversation. She had chosen her family's wealth and approval over our relationship. She had agreed to betray me, to use me, because she was not strong enough to stand up to her parents. I spent that night on my friend Marcus's couch, unable to sleep, unable to think clearly. My wedding was in 2 days. I had two choices: go through with it and accept a life of being controlled and manipulated, or cancel everything and lose $45,000 plus the respect of everyone who had planned to attend. But then, lying there in the dark, I thought of a third option. I did not sleep that night. By the time the sun came up, I had made my decision. I was not going to cancel the wedding publicly. Instead, I was going to let Diane and her family think everything was proceeding as planned. And then, at the moment, when they expected me to show up and seal their trap, I would disappear. But I was not going to just run away. I was going to make sure everyone knew exactly why. The next morning, I called my friend Kyle, who happened to be a lawyer. I met him at a coffee shop and showed him the prenuptial agreement Gordon had given me. Kyle spent an hour reading through it, and when he looked up, his expression was grim. Brett, this is one of the most predatory prenups I have ever seen. This clause here on page 12, it is essentially a financial trap. If you divorce within 3 years, you would owe Diane half your assets. But it gets worse. There are provisions here that would give her family legal claim to intellectual property you developed during the marriage, which, for a software engineer like you, could mean anything you create or invent. He flipped through more pages. And look at this. Any income you earn goes into a joint account that requires both signatures for withdrawals over $500. They could effectively freeze you out of your own money. I felt sick. Can they do this? Is it even legal? Kyle frowned. It is legally questionable. There are elements of fraud here, especially if they pressured Diane to get you to sign without proper legal counsel. But fighting it in court would cost you tens of thousands in legal fees. I leaned back in my chair. What if I just do not show up to the wedding? Kyle looked surprised. You mean leave her at the altar, not just leave her? I want to make sure everyone knows why. Her family has spent months manipulating me, using me, planning to trap me in a marriage designed to exploit me financially. They have counted on me being too polite, too in love, or too embarrassed to fight back. I want to expose them. Kyle was quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. I will help you. But you need to be strategic about this. If you are going to blow up your wedding, you need to do it in a way that protects you legally and financially. We spent the rest of that day planning. First, I went to my bank and moved all my savings into a new account that only I had access to. The $45,000 I had already spent was gone, but I was not going to let them get their hands on anything else. Then I did something that felt sneaky but necessary. I went back to Diane's family home when I knew they would be having one of their planning sessions. I had my phone in my pocket set to record. I needed proof of what they had said, not just for myself, but for everyone else. I found them in Gordon's study, exactly where I expected. I knocked on the door and asked if I could discuss some last-minute wedding details. They invited me in, all smiles and fake warmth. As they talked about seating arrangements and the reception timeline, I steered the conversation toward our future. I have been thinking about after the wedding, I said carefully. Diane mentioned you might have opportunities for me at your companies. Gordon's eyes lit up. Absolutely, Brett. We have been meaning to talk to you about that. We could really use someone with your technical expertise. Patricia added. And of course, once you are family, we will want to help you and Diane manage your finances properly. Build real wealth, not just a salary. I kept my expression neutral as they laid out exactly what I had heard them discussing before. They talked about joint accounts, about investment opportunities that would require my money, about how family members work together for the collective good. My phone recorded every word. When I left that house, I had everything I needed. The night before the wedding, I sat down and wrote an email. It took me 3 hours to get it right. I wrote about how much I had loved Diane, about how excited I had been to start our life together. Then I explained what I had discovered. I described the conversation I had overheard, included the audio recording I had made, and attached copies of the most damaging clauses in the prenuptial agreement. I wrote, "I am sorry for any inconvenience my absence will cause, but I cannot in good conscience marry into a family that sees me not as a person but as a financial resource to be exploited. I love Diane with all my heart. But love cannot survive in soil poisoned by manipulation and greed." I added every single one of the 300 wedding guests to the email. Then I scheduled it to send at 8 in the morning, 1 hour before the ceremony was supposed to start. On the morning of the wedding, I packed a bag, got in my car, and started driving to Portland. Marcus had agreed to let me stay with him for as long as I needed. As I crossed the bridge out of Seattle, my phone dinged with a confirmation that the email had been sent. I imagined the chaos that was probably erupting at the venue. Patricia and Gordon receiving the email on their phones. The guests arriving and checking their messages. Diane realizing what I had done. Part of me felt guilty for the public humiliation, but a larger part felt liberated. My phone started ringing immediately. First Diane, then Patricia, then Gordon, then numbers I did not recognize. I had blocked them all the night before. I did not want to hear their excuses, their threats, or their pleas. I had said everything I needed to say in that email. By noon, my phone was flooded with text messages from friends and acquaintances. Most were supportive. Some were shocked. A few asked if I was okay. I responded to the people I cared about, assuring them I was safe and had made the right decision. One message stood out. It was from a woman named Carol who worked with Patricia. She wrote, "I have known Patricia for 15 years, and I have watched her manipulate people for business gain that entire time. What you did took incredible courage. You saved yourself from a nightmare." Another came from one of Diane's college friends. "Diane just called me sobbing. She admitted everything you said was true. She said she thought she could protect you after the wedding, but she knows now how naive that was. She is devastated." I felt a pang of sadness for Diane. Despite everything, I had loved her, but she had made her choice, and I had made mine. The first 2 weeks after the wedding that never happened were the hardest of my life. I stayed with Marcus in Portland, sleeping on his couch and trying to process what had happened. Some nights I could not sleep at all. I would lie awake, wondering if I had made the right decision, if maybe I should have tried to work things out with Diane, if I had overreacted. But Marcus would not let me spiral into regret. "Brett, man, you dodged a bullet the size of a freight train. Yeah, you lost money, but you kept your freedom, your dignity, and your future. That is worth way more than $45,000. He was right, but knowing that intellectually did not stop the hurt. I had lost the woman I loved, and the future I had imagined. Even if that future had been built on lies, the grief was real. After 2 weeks, I returned to Seattle and moved into a new apartment across town, far from any place that held memories of Diane. Starting over was harder than I expected. I had to buy new furniture, set up new routines, rebuild a life that suddenly felt empty. Work became my refuge. I threw myself into my projects at the tech company, volunteering for extra assignments and working late hours. My manager noticed my dedication, and 3 months later offered me a promotion to senior engineer. The raise helped offset the financial loss from the wedding. Through mutual friends, I heard about what was happening with Diane's family. The scandal had damaged Patricia's business reputation. Several of her clients had terminated their contracts after hearing about the manipulative tactics she used in her personal life. They wondered if she conducted her business the same way. Gordon faced similar consequences at his law firm. Some of his colleagues began avoiding him, questioning his ethics. As for Diane, I heard she had taken a 2-month leave from work. The stress and public humiliation had taken a toll on her mental health. Part of me felt sorry for her, but I reminded myself that she had been complicit in her parents' scheme. She had chosen their approval over our love. 6 months after the wedding, I received a handwritten letter from Diane. It arrived at my new apartment, forwarded from my old address. I almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity got the better of me. In the letter, Diane apologized. She wrote that she had been in therapy and had come to realize how much her parents had controlled her entire life. She had cut off financial ties with them and was learning to stand on her own for the first time. She was not asking me to forgive her or take her back. She just wanted me to know that she understood what she had done wrong and that she hoped I would find the happiness I deserved. I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in a drawer. I did not respond, but I felt a sense of closure. Diane was finally free from her parents, even if that freedom had come at a terrible cost to both of us. As for me, I started rebuilding my life piece by piece. I joined a running club and met people who knew nothing about my past. I traveled to Japan for 2 weeks, a solo trip that helped me reconnect with myself. I hiked Mount Fuji, visited ancient temples, and spent evenings in small restaurants, talking to locals. When I returned to Seattle, I felt different. Lighter. The anger and hurt had not disappeared completely, but they no longer defined me. I started dating again cautiously at first. I was more careful now, more aware of red flags, more willing to walk away when something did not feel right. I learned to set boundaries. When a woman I was seeing asked to borrow money after just 3 dates, I politely ended things. When another wanted me to invest in her startup before we had even established a real relationship, I recognized the pattern and stepped back. I was not going to let anyone use me again. A year after the wedding, I met someone new. Her name was Sophie, and she was a teacher at a local elementary school. She came from a modest background, drove a 10-year-old car, and split the check on our first date. There was no pretense with her, no hidden agendas, just honesty and kindness. We took things slowly. I was upfront about what had happened with Diane, and Sophie listened without judgment. She did not try to fix me or rush me into commitment. She just let me be myself, which was the greatest gift anyone had given me in a long time. Looking back now, I realized that skipping my own wedding was not an act of cowardice, but of courage. It took strength to walk away from everything I had invested in, emotionally and financially. It took courage to expose the truth even when it meant public embarrassment for everyone involved, including myself. I learned that love without respect is not really love at all. A person who truly loves you will never let their family treat you as less than human. They will stand up for you, even when it costs them something. Diane was not capable of that kind of love, not because she was a bad person, but because she had never learned to value herself or anyone else above her parents' approval and money. I also learned that money lost can be earned back, but dignity once surrendered is much harder to reclaim. Those $45,000 hurt to lose, but they bought me a lesson I will never forget. They bought me my freedom. Sometimes people ask me if I regret my decision. The answer is no. Not even on my loneliest nights. Not even when I see happy couples and wonder what might have been, because I know that the marriage I escaped would have slowly destroyed me. It would have turned me into a puppet controlled by people who saw me only as a means to their own enrichment. I chose myself. I chose my dignity, my autonomy, and my future. That was the best decision I ever made. Today I am 33 years old. I am still a software engineer, still living in Seattle, still building a life on my own terms. Sophie and I are still together, taking things one day at a time. I have not proposed, and I might not for a while. Marriage does not scare me, but I am in no rush. I have learned that the right relationship does not require you to sacrifice who you are. Sometimes the wedding you skip is the marriage you save yourself from. And sometimes, the greatest act of love is knowing when to walk away, not just from someone else, but for yourself. I think about Diane occasionally and hope she has found peace. I hope she has learned to build a life independent of her parents' control and money. But mostly I focus on my own journey, on the person I am becoming rather than the person I almost allowed myself to be reduced to. If my story teaches anything, it is this: trust your instincts. When something feels wrong, it probably is. Do not ignore red flags because you are in love or because you have already invested time and money. No wedding, no relationship, no family connection is worth losing yourself. And if you ever find yourself in a position where you have to choose between love and self-respect, choose yourself every single time. Because you are the one person you will spend the rest of your life with. Make sure that person is someone you can be proud of. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between love and self-respect? Have you ever walked away from something everyone expected you to commit to? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories. Share this with someone who might need to hear it, someone who might be struggling with a difficult relationship decision right now. Your support means everything and helps these stories reach people who need them most. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you the courage to always choose yourself when it matters most. Take care of yourselves out there, and remember that sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the best outcomes.